I'm Ms McCabe, UK editor of Campaign, and welcome to Campaign's Media360 podcast, produced by Fresh Air Production, and recorded here at the 21st Conference in the Grand Hotel, Brighton. This year's theme was risk and innovation, so for this series we spoke to a huge range of marketing leaders to explore how they and their teams push their boundaries for their brands and clients. In this episode, Fresh Air's Director of Content, Michaela Hallam, spoke to Geneen, Head of Mass Acquisition at the British Heart Foundation, about how they've used innovative channels, including gaming, to get their message out.
It's day 2 of the Media360 conference here in Brighton, and I'm sat with Geneen, who is the Head of Mass Acquisition for the British Heart Foundation. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for making the time. Head of Mass Acquisition, what does that mean?
Yeah, so my job at British Heart Foundation is we've got a number of different heads of marketing, and we have a head of marketing who's sort of responsible for our brand marketing and all of our health marketing. So that's getting British Heart Foundation out there, really showcasing like the big brand position of like, together we power the science that saves lives, and showing that British Heart Foundation does that through funding research, and then all of our health stuff, and which is whether someone's looking for information and support, or promoting our Reviver app, which teaches people how to do CPR in 15 minutes, or getting people to register their defibrillators to the National Defibrillator Network that's called the Circuit. But that isn't my job. What I look after is getting people to support us. So that could be encouraging people to donate to us for, like giving us a bit of cash, or setting up a direct debit, or playing our lottery. We have a charity lottery, which is £1 a week, and you can win £1,000. And if you don't, it's great because all that money is going to charity and it's helping fund research. Or a lot of people choose to leave gifts in their wills to us, which for the whole charity sector is a really significant part of income. For most charities, it's over 50% of their income from the generosity of people leaving gifts in their wills. Or the final part is getting people to support us by undertaking some fundraising, either via participating in one of our events, like the London to Brighton bike ride on June 16th this year, or one of our other events if someone takes part in like a London Marathon, or one of those mass participation things. So my job in a nutshell is to like get the marketing out there to people who are considering supporting us in one of the different ways, and providing them the opportunity to do that.
Thank you. That makes sense of that title brilliantly. Yeah. We're here at, as you said, at the conference in Brighton, and the theme this year is risk. What's the biggest risk you've ever taken in your life? This is outside of marketing, but it helps us to get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, I was having a think about this one, and outside of marketing and just like a personal risk is when I was in my early 20s, I was living in Bristol. I'd been at university for a year, and then I dropped out. And drop out is sort of it's a bit of a loaded term, but realistically, I think, being honest, that's what I did. I didn't put enough effort and time into it. And I got a job, and I was working in Bristol and having a great time. And it came to the end of like 2 or 3 years that I'd been there. And one of my friends was like, when I finish my degree, I'm going to go off traveling. Yeah. Like, you should come with me, mate. I was like, well, I don't know. I'm quite happy here. And he's like, it's not career what you're doing. You're just working and you're being around. Why don't you come with me? And why don't you come, and I'm going to get to Thailand, and I'm going to learn how to be a scuba dive master. And I was like, that sounds cool. All right, I'll do that. I was just thinking, why not? So I saved a bit of money, and I went to Thailand. I got to Koh Tao, which is a small island in the Gulf of Thailand, and to the Scuba Shack dive center, which is a really small dive center that was running at the time. And I went up and I said, I want to do my dive master. And for those who don't know about scuba diving, you have it's a PADI course.
I did my PADI at Koh Tao.
There you go, great. And what you tend to have is you have your PADI open water, which is your basic dive license, and it means that you can go off and with an instructor and go scuba diving, or you can hire some kit. And then you have your advanced, which teaches you how to dive a bit deeper or dive at night. But then the first professional qualification is a dive master. So your first course is like 6 dives, and then your advanced is maybe another 8. But then to get your dive master, you have to do like 60 or 70 dives. And it's quite a financial commitment. It's a long time, it takes 3 months. So I rocked up and said, I want to do my dive master. And then the instructor was like, okay, so when did you do your advanced? I was like, I've not done my advanced. I was like, when did you do your open water? I was like, not done that either. And he's like, have you ever scuba dived? I was like, no. And he's like, how do you know you're going to like it? And I just said, well, do you like it? And he's like, yeah, it's great. And I went, oh, that'll do. And I just did it. And I just paid that money. And I lent into the fact that it's like, it felt like a risk.
Yeah.
Paying that money and going there and booking my accommodation. But it was sort of a calculated risk. I was like,
And leaning into it and committing to it.
yeah, I was like,
It sounds like you've got a soundtrack to that
Yeah,
risk going on right next
exactly.
to us.
It was a great moment, and I did it, and I loved it, and had a great time. And then it finished, and I went on to Australia. And a couple of months later, I was getting paid to go scuba diving on the Great Barrier Reef. I got a job working on the most famous dive location in the world, and my colleagues were bumphead parrotfish and reef sharks and nudibranch, which are tiny little sea slugs.
Yeah. And now we're on the seafront in Brighton in the driving rain with
Yeah.
ambulances and trucks going past. It's quite a different feeling. That's kind of your life. That tells us that like, you'll lean into the risk and kind of own it. What about in marketing? What's the biggest risk you've taken in your career in terms of the work that you're putting out there?
It's quite challenging to think about that, because I guess I've been responsible for marketing at a senior enough level in the last sort of couple of positions that I've had. And prior to that, there's always a boss you've got to engage, or someone sort of telling you what to do. But in terms of like some work that we've done recently that is risky and a bit innovative. So as I said, there's a role at the British Heart Foundation, which is the head of brand and health marketing, and it's been vacant since November due to an internal restructure. So I've been stepping across and doing that job. So that's a risk in itself. Like, I'm doing 2 jobs. Both of them are super important for the organization. One is about money, one is about mission, and it's a risk to take that on board. But it's an important risk, and one that I wanted to do, and gives me a really good opportunity at a charity. And within that, one of our areas of work we have, as I talked about and mentioned before, is we have an app which is called the Reviver app.
Yes.
And your listeners might have heard about it recently because it's been all over the BBC Breakfast, and we've been really promoting it, because unfortunately in the UK, if people have a heart attack, if it's outside a hospital, only 1 in 10 people will survive from that. So if you have an out of hospital cardiac arrest or heart attack, your chances of surviving are really, really low. But if someone intervenes with CPR, it goes up to 50%.
Yeah.
So that increases the survival rate 5-fold. And it's really, really, really important. And we're doing great work with it, and lots of people are training on it. But like, there's a part of the audience who's just not engaging, and that's a younger audiences. But interestingly, they're the people who've had the most amount of training.
Right. Okay.
Because it's this excellent bit of music coming at the same time.
Soundtrack coming up next door.
They've had the most amount of training because it's part of the secondary curriculum to learn how to do CPR.
Okay.
But we wanted to re-engage with that audience, so we took the risk of partnering up with Twitch.
Okay.
Which gaming, you say gaming, and immediately everyone's like, oh, it's Fortnite, and it's people shooting, and it's Call of Duty, and it's Grand Theft Auto, and don't they have prostitutes in there? Oh, no, it's not brand safe. We can't do it. So we said, yeah, but it's a massive audience, and they are highly, highly, highly engaged. So what we did is, after working with PhD, who are media buyers, took the opportunity to lean into that risk and looked at different areas, and we mitigated in some areas by limiting which sort of streamers we'd work with and what sort of content they're working on. And we launched an industry first. We took over Twitch. We worked with a number of streamers, and when streamers go on a break, they have a be right back screen. So it's just a card that sort of sits up. It says, I'll be back in 15 minutes or whatever. And we did a sort of media blackout of all these streamers all at the same time. No one had done it. We worked with them all at the same time. So all at the same time, on the same day, they flashed up these cards, but they didn't tell their audiences they were doing it. And we used the creative, which was a pulse came up on screen, and then it flatlined and the screen went blank. And then our card on Reviver came up. And that was like a big risk. Didn't know how it was going to land with the audience. Didn't know how it was going to land with the streamers. What was the reach going to get? Yeah, and it paid off in lots of different ways. And from a performance perspective, it was great. But
how do you quantify the success of that? There's no ROI as such in that sort of thing. So what is success?
We looked at it from a couple of ways. We looked at, how many impressions we wanted to get, what our reach was. And we booked I think it was about 4.4 million impressions.
Amazing.
But actually, because of the engagement and the streaming, it was over 18 million we got organically. So we booked that reach, but loads more people watched it, and Twitch provided those. The value of that it was about 100 grand or so for the campaign, and we reskinned it afterwards. How much it would have cost us was over 650 grand.
Right.
So got £500,000 worth of free media. We had a number of people downloading the app and taking part and doing doing.
So you could track that in terms of time as to how those
and link throughs,
correlated.
because we had QR codes for like people driving people.
Yeah.
We had one of our streamers, and this is the biggest thing, actually decide organically to do the training live on his stream. So he got a stuffed sheep from his bed and he did CPR training live on his stream to his followers, and his chat blew up. People were like, yeah, I'm doing it. We're saving lives. It's great. It's amazing. And it was really fun. And the
so
Revive
it becomes
apps,
part of their culture then, in a way that they're engaging with in an authentic way.
But the best bit wasn't that. The best bit was that 2 weeks later, he got a message from one of his followers. His name's Preach. Said, dear Preach, thank you so much for encouraging me to do Reviver. I used it yesterday on my 2-year-old niece when she had a cardiac arrest and saved her life.
Oh, that's incredible. That's really incredible.
And that is kind of what it's about.
Yeah. It's a serious topic, what you do. How much do you ever lean into kind of the hard-hitting nature of things, the shock for genuine, not gratuitous reasons? Is that something that, do you ever use shock tactics or scare tactics to wake people up to the reality of if they don't understand what to do in those sorts of situations?
Yeah, I mean, we're a charity.
Yeah.
So, we are highly regulated by lots of different areas.
Yeah.
By the Charity Commission in particular. But not just that, we don't want to upset people. That's not our mission. Our mission is to make people free of the fear of heart and circulatory disease.
Enable people, I guess.
Yeah, we want people not to be scared of it. Like, heart and circulatory disease is the biggest killer in the UK. Bigger than cancer, bigger than neurological disease. Like, it's the single biggest killer of people in the United Kingdom. But lots of people don't know that. But our job isn't just to scare people to make them give us money or do an app. Like, that isn't hugely motivating. But at times, you really have to communicate ultimately what the cause is and why it's important to people. And yeah, at times that can be really, really challenging. But I think that's a level of risk that we've done. I think quite a couple of years ago, we launched our first This Is Science campaign. And it featured how people you wouldn't expect having heart and circulatory conditions and the science that we're doing to power it. And one of the scenes featured a young female footballer collapsing on a pitch. And that, a lot of people were quite shocked by that. But that's true. That happens. We've seen it at a mass level from Christian Eriksen to Tom Lockyer on football pitches. But it happens all around the country. And so, yeah, it is just about finding that balance at the level of what is putting the truth out there versus trying to put the truth out to then monetize it. And that's the careful balance that we have to, and we are highly regulated on that. And we'll push it to an element we think is right for our customers and our supporters. But ultimately, we are quite mindful of it.
Yeah, and it's reflecting the reality of the situation as opposed to over dramatizing it. You talked about monetization. Ultimately, you are a charity. There's a cost of living crisis going on at the moment. How much harder is it for you to market a charity during times like these?
It's not easy, and the whole sector is finding it very, very challenging. In a nutshell, it can be summed up as there are fewer people who are giving, but those who are giving more.
Okay.
So if you've got, you give. But a lot of people are, I just haven't got it, which is why we have like a portfolio of different ways that people can support. So if they've got some cash, they can donate to us, and we absolutely love it. If they can't donate to us right now, and maybe they can take part in an event and they can utilize their network and they can raise some funds for us, either via taking part in an event or do your own thing, fundraising from, like bake sales and quizzes and all that sort of great stuff. If you can't do that, but you do think that maybe in the future you might be able to, maybe and you think it's a great cause, maybe you could leave us a gift in your will, because you might not have right now, but your estate might do in the future. And as I said, gifts in wills fund over 50% of our annual income. That's a huge rate. Or if you like a little bit of a laugh and a little bit of fun, we've got a charity lottery, and it's £1 a week. You could win £1,000, which is great.
Yeah.
But actually, if you don't, that money's going to fund life-saving research. So there's lots of elements that people can support us at a time where cost of living is really, really, really challenging. But yeah, however any supporters want to support us, we're really, really grateful. But we also, the marketing element is we just always think about how are we spending that money and what's the best return, because this is donated money. And ultimately we need to be really, really careful. Plus, on top of it, British Heart Foundation has 700 shops across the UK. You can, you want to help us? Go and buy a t-shirt. Go and get some amazing furniture from a British Heart Foundation big store. Like, there's loads of stuff out there you can get amazingly. I recently bought a cabinet for my collection of miniature Warhammer. Because that's my hobby, and I was like, well, I might as well get it from somewhere that's going to. And there you go, it's great quality. So there's lots of different ways of support, and if you do want to, like, even if you haven't got time, you haven't got money, you haven't got time, you haven't got staff, like you don't, any of that stuff. Volunteering's great as well. Like, if you've got a spare hour or something, you can come along to an event.
And part of this is about just putting yourself front of mind for people as well. And so I guess there are lots of different touch points within marketing that you can do that. You talked in the Twitch activation about the heartbeat and then that flatlining, which feels like a really brilliant use of audio and translating that into the audio space. So what's your take on using audio in terms of talking about the British Heart Foundation?
We use a full diverse marketing mix, and specifically with advertising, a real broad channel mix. Radio is great. Love radio. Big fan of it. We've got, our legacy adverts from radio. We've got our events ads that we've got via programmatic radio. We have our lottery advert that lands on radio loads. But one of the areas that we're leaning into and is massive growth for us, which is seeing a change of our marketing mix, is podcasts. We're doing loads with podcasts. We did a partnership with the Times recently, and I actually went on Jane and Fee's podcast to talk about legacy marketing, which was great. It's quite intimidating to pop in and be have that level of sort of interview, but was really, really good and has driven really high levels of engagement. But we've also done some sponsorship activity with some other areas, both legacy and events, on a number of different podcasts, and that engaged audience and getting those presenteries in particular, that's one of the things that has been really working for us, is getting people to kind of have a conversation, really organic. And it
all ultimately comes down to, and I like this, it was from your LinkedIn, that you love a story well told, be it written, spoken or shown, and then look to harness that spark to make things happen. So ultimately it comes down to telling your story in a way that engages people in whatever medium.
100%. Humans have been telling stories since we could speak, right? And that's been the primary way of information and knowledge sharing. It continues, and really, really well told stories, be that, as you say, written, shown or spoken, are what captivate people and make people lean in and engage and care that much more. And I think what we have at British Heart Foundation is a plethora of content, of stories to tell. There are so many stories, from heartening to heartbreaking, and they all mean something and mean something deeply to a lot of people.
I want to say that I'm really grateful that you've sat down with us and taken the time for us to hear your story.
No problem.
Thank you very, very much indeed. And I think one of the huge themes from this is about connection and storytelling, but also leaning into risk for all the right reasons. So thank you so much to Dan Geneen from the British Heart Foundation for sitting down with us today.
Thank you for listening to the Campaign Media360 podcast, presented by Michaela Hallam, the Director of Content at Fresh Air Production, our podcast partner. There are lots more conversations to hear with a great range of marketing leaders, so please follow on your favoured platform so you don't miss an episode.